and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the special meeting of the Ramsey County Commission. Purpose of this meeting is for the interview of the state's attorney position. And anybody have any questions before we?
How would you like to divvy up the questions? I assume you don't want to ask all 20.
No. Crystal had put together some questions for us for the interview process. And I thought we could start over to my right, your left, start with Adam, and that way we're not jumping around. And since Adam is portfolio commissioner, I think it would be prudent that he would start. So the position is for the county state's attorney. Purpose of the interview is to introduce the applicant with the board, provide further explanation of position and organization, gain a firm understanding of the applicant's background and experience, department structure, we can go over that, and then the next steps after the interview. Next steps after the interview would obviously depend on the outcome of the interview, what we decide, whether or not it's a job offer and whether or not Mr. Cummings would accept that, and go from there. Whether or not we want to do that tonight, yet at this meeting, I guess I would leave that up to the other commissioners, but I think it would be prudent for us to move forward expeditiously with this matter. So with that, Mr. Cummings, the meeting, as you well know, is recorded. It's live streamed as well, so we are on the internet as we speak. So all is good. So
yeah, go ahead and come on up here. This is Mr. Bull Cummings, and we usually do a handshake, but due to your circumstances, should we just go around and everybody can introduce themselves to him? And then I did mention to him that he can take his mask off during the interview, so if everybody's okay with that.
You guys don't have any issues with that, right?
Okay.
okay.
Want me to start? Introduce myself first.
Go ahead, Adam.
Adam Lipon. I've been on the commission for 6 years, something like that. And I'm the portfolio holder for the state's attorney as well as the extension right now. Goodness, I was just up here. This is my life.
Wayne Moore, new in the commission, portfolio for the treasurer, and room committee. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. I'd like to, my name is Jeff Frith. I'm the chairman for this year. Been on the commission since 2016. This was one of my first duties as a commissioner, was to go through the interview process for our prior state's attorney. So you would think we'd be okay with this, but it always feels like new ground. So I'd like to welcome you and pass things off to Commissioner Brown.
Commissioner Brown, been on the commission a while.
And I'm Lucas Wakefield. I'm a peer of Jeff's. Came on the commission in 2016, and my portfolio is the sheriff's department. Hi, Steve.
And we can't forget to my left.
Candy Christopherson, auditor.
I can't. Chance to hear.
Yeah, she's really our boss, calling anybody there.
Well, thanks for having me tonight, guys. I'm excited to be here with you, Mr. Chairman, and other commissioners. Let's get the show on the road, huh?
Yeah.
I'll lead off. Sound good?
So,
Well, we'll jump right into questions then. Like I said, there's about 20 questions here, but we'll try to go through them. Question number one, I guess, is describe for us any prior employment experiences that would qualify you for this position.
All right, well, I'm currently the public defender here in Devils Lake, but that's a little misleading. I cover an 11 county region spanning from the eastern border of North Dakota all the way to Renville. So I have experience working with a lot of different courthouses, courthouse staffs, defendants, victims, state's attorneys. And I think that experience is directly applicable to this position. It's two sides of the same coin. Prior to that, I worked in Williston as a public defender. So I'm familiar with what it's like to be in a high volume area with a large caseload. Prior to that, I worked at the legislature, helping staff House Judiciary and political subdivisions. So I know what it's like to answer to fine commissioners like yourselves. And in law school, I worked at the United States Attorney's Office and also worked at a small real estate firm. So I think those are all directly applicable to this position and speaks to my diversity.
Good, thank you.
Question two, describe your interest in becoming a state's attorney and why you are considering Ramsey County.
So that's a really good question. I guess I'd flip it on you. Why wouldn't I want to be the state's attorney, right? It's one of the top law enforcement officials in the county. You get to live and work and make your community better. You get to help the commission and steer not only that Ramsey County and Devils Lake is surviving, but it's thriving. And that's something I want to be a part of.
Well, what do you see as the most significant challenge facing the Ramsey County State's Attorney's Office?
I would say right now it's probably caseload and caseload management, especially with the coronavirus and how we are processing people through and making sure that their constitutional rights are being upheld. I think that the team up there is doing a fantastic job as it is right now, but I think there's always room for improvement, and I'm excited to get into that and help try to keep things moving as best as possible.
Great, thank you.
Can you tell us about a difficult case or situation you dealt with, what you did to organize it, and what were your goals and timeline, and what were the results?
Well,
That's quite a lengthy question. You can cut that down a little bit if you want.
well, being a public defender every day is tough. I joke with my team member, it's great because every day I know somebody's gonna be mad at me. So, you learn to take a big problem and make it into smaller problems. The best thing I think you can do is try to eat the elephant one bite at a time. When you look at a big problem and it gets scary, take a step back, break it down into manageable tasks, and take them one at a time. And that's kind of how I approach every day in my current role, and that's what I bring to the table in the new role.
Thank you.
In this position, who are the likely stakeholders, internal and external, that you would regularly utilize in order to fulfill your commitment to this community? And in what capacity would you engage those stakeholders?
I think that it's important to recognize that no man is an island. And so when you try to make decisions by yourself, you end up getting in trouble. It would definitely be important to me to work with community partners like the Sheriff's Office, the Law Enforcement Center Administration, the local police, obviously the commissioners, the other department heads, as well as the court staff and the juvenile court staff. It's important that we have a well-oiled machine and we're all working towards the same goal, making Ramsey County and Devils Lake better.
Okay. So tell us about a high-pressure situation you successfully navigated and why your involvement improved the outcome.
Well, does the job interview count?
I would say so.
you know, I think stakes get high all the time when you're dealing with people and having them deprived of their life or liberty. Just yesterday, we went through a trial upstairs, and you know, you just got to take it one step at a time. You got to prepare yourself and not go in half-cocked. That's how you get in trouble too. And so I think, you know, that's. Does that answer your question, or did I sidestep it?
I think so.
Question number 7. Now tell us about a high-pressure situation you unsuccessfully navigated and how your involvement weakened the outcome. What did you learn from this experience?
Well, I'll pull an example from Williston. I had a client who was a high-level drug dealer. He had felony A offenses, which is the second highest you can go. And he really, really thought he was going to beat it, and he was going to, you know, stick it to everybody. And that's a real high-pressure situation when you're playing with 20 years of somebody's life. And ultimately, he did end up losing at the trial, and that's a tough thing to deal with as somebody who's charged with being there and trying to help defend somebody. But the big takeaway from it was that sometimes you can do everything right and still be wrong, and that's okay. As long as you're doing what you need to be doing and you're filling your end of the bargain and doing your best, then that's okay.
Paul, could you tell us a time when you made a significant mistake at work and how you dealt with the mistake?
Well, I'd like to think I don't make very many high-level mistakes, but you know, being a lawyer, there's a lot of paperwork. Sometimes things can get missed in the shuffle. I'm one of those people, I'm all about radical accountability. If I screw up, I'm going to be the first one to tell you. I'm going to come up to you, I'm going to let you know, hey, this got missed. Here's what I'm doing to fix it. Here's when it's getting done. I would say that's happened only a few times with clients, but all I can say is going forward, I don't think it's going to be a major issue with us. Hopefully.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, give us an example of how you carefully considered your audience prior to communicating with them. You've only seen us for like 10 minutes. What factors influence your communication?
I think it's important to realize who you're talking with and, you know, try not to be the smartest man in the room. I know I'm not because Candy's here. So, I think it's just important to recognize where you are and who you're dealing with. And I would like to think I'm a pretty accomplished speaker, and sometimes less is more.
Thank you.
The last time you had to make a presentation to a group of individuals, how did you plan it? How did it go? And what were the results or feedback you received?
Well, being a lawyer, every day is kind of a presentation. If you're talking about a formal presentation, like with PowerPoint, I think that would have been law school. It's been a while. Yesterday, we had that trial that I mentioned to all of you. And so you have to meet with the client, discuss what your objectives are, go over the evidence together, decide what you want to do, how you want to proceed, what questions to ask. You know, and we go there and we present and tell our side to the judge, and ultimately he makes the decision. I wasn't successful, but you know, that's, like I said, you can do everything right and still sometimes it comes out against you.
Okay, tell us about a time when you had to strongly persuade a colleague to accept your point of view?
Well, when I was working out in the legislature, sometimes the representatives can be a little strong-headed and, you know, they're very, this is what I want to do, make it legal. And there was one instance in particular where I was working with my committee chairman and he just would not budge off of it. And, you know, in a situation like that, it's better instead of trying to, in front of everybody and make a scene, take them aside, explain, here's what I think is right, here's why I think it's right. And ultimately work with him to come around and see my point of view. And that really comes down to persistence more than anything else, because it doesn't always happen right away. And he ultimately did realize that the changes they were trying to make would have been unconstitutional. And so I'm glad he came around.
If I could have a follow-up, what committee did you serve on?
I worked with the House Judiciary Committee, and I also worked with the House Political Subdivisions and Ethics Committee during the 2019 session.
A couple really busy committees.
Yeah, I'm used to high volume, high pressure.
Thank you.
Tell us about an ethical dilemma that you have recently faced and how you reasoned through the dilemma.
So being a lawyer, there's a lot of things that crop up and lots of different rules that you have to follow. One in particular is client confidentiality. We get a lot of calls at our office from concerned family members who want to know everything that's going on with the case. And that can be really difficult to tell somebody, hey, I can't communicate with you about your loved one and what's going on with them, because they are trusting that their business is going to be kept private. So we deal with that on a daily basis. But I think the key to that is having firm boundaries and knowing what your obligations are before you go into the situation, instead of trying to figure them out after the fact.
Well, what would you do if you were assigned a case that you were morally opposed to? And how would you reconcile that difference?
That's a good question. I think that it's important to remember it's bigger than me, right? It's not Bull Cummings County, it's Ramsey County. And I have to weigh that, work with my team, and figure out the best way forward. You're always going to run into situations that you may disagree with, but it's important to remember there are things bigger than yourself. So I think that's how I would try to compartmentalize it. And I'm a big believer in the one team, one fight approach. You know, if somebody in my office is more comfortable taking care of it, that's fine. I'm going to support you the way I can and do what I can to help you in the way that I can see fit. Does that answer your question?
Sure does, thank you.
Tell us about your comfort level with being exposed to violent or erroneous crimes against a person, especially a child.
Well, it's never good. It's never good. I have a lot of experience with people who have committed violent crimes and heinous crimes. I have been assigned everything from the bottom to the top. I've had murderers, I have had people who have committed sexual acts, and I've been in the cage face to face with them, talking through their case. You know, you just got to have that ice in your veins, and you know what the right outcome is. You just got to do what you can do. Do right by the victims, do right by society, and make sure that the Constitution is being upheld and they're getting their legal rights satisfied.
Thank you.
Being that you're a relatively new attorney and you don't have necessarily so much courtroom experience on the prosecution side. Do you see that as being an issue? And if so, how would you overcome that issue?
Well, I don't. 2 years in the public defender office is like 10 years anywhere else, you know? I'd like to think I'm pretty well comfortable being in front of people, dealing with people being upset with your decisions. I mean, you're not going to do right by everybody. I think that the experience on that side of the aisle is directly applicable to the other side of the aisle. It's the same analyzation, facts. It's the same talking with people, trying to find the right outcome, making sure you're doing right by your community. So I think I'd be okay. Be a good transition.
Okay, next question. In any of your previous positions, did you supervise staff?
So I'm currently the supervisor in the Devils Lake office. I have a staff of 1. Prior to that, I was in Williston, and there was some flux between who the supervisor was. And for a while, I was the only licensed attorney in the office. So I was kind of the de facto supervisor. I think you got to supervise along a continuum, you know. Some people need more attention than others. Some people are best left to their own devices. So I do have that experience, and I think it's directly applicable to the staff upstairs too.
Management requires both good writing and verbal skills for effective communication. When it comes to giving information to employees, that can be done either way. Do you prefer to write an email, a memo, or talk to the employee? And why?
I think I would say a combination of the two. If it's something that's a bigger ticket item, that's probably best to be put in writing and have down in case I'm not around, so somebody can rehash that and reread through that. I feel pretty confident in my ability to draft memos and things like that. But as far as day-to-day goes, you have to be able to work with your team and work with your surroundings and communicate effectively. This is what I need. This is what you need. Okay, let's figure it out and move ahead. I hope you guys can tell that I'm pretty comfortable up here tonight with, you know, communicating, spoken to you. So.
Thank you.
Well, what would your last boss say, what your strengths and weaknesses would be?
Well, I'm kind of a jack of many trades. I'd like to think that he says I would have good time management and good expectation management. I don't think you're going to find somebody who's willing to work harder than I am. I have a lot to prove, and I'm kind of a young guy, so people underestimate me. But I really think of it as a strength. I can grow into that. I would also say he'd probably say I'm pretty easygoing and moderately funny. So I think those are all strengths.
Any weaknesses that you would identify for your previous boss?
Probably too much of a kiss ass. So
Okay.
no, I think there's always room for improvement, no matter what you do. And I try to embrace that mentality. You know, even though I'm doing well at this, I can always do better. I can always try a little bit harder. Maybe knowing when to shut my mouth is a good thing too. So.
I didn't realize this question was in here, but it talks about salary.
Okay.
What are your salary requirements? I mean, I'll talk about that at the end.
Well, we can move it to the end if you guys want.
Go ahead.
Well, I think when you look at the data of the other counties and you look at the fact that there's 750 to about 1,000 cases coming through here, I definitely think that it's a little bit higher than what's been listed. But I would allow the commission to throw out the first number, so I'm not negotiating against myself. Classic lawyer answer, right?
Yeah, I thought.
If we offer you the position, when we go to start.
It's very important to me to do right by my current employer. I would want to give the full 2-week notice. So that would put us, what, second week of March starting? But the sooner you guys get back to me, the sooner I can get back to you.
Now that you have learned about our organization and the position you're applying for, what hesitation or reluctance would you have in accepting the job if we offered it?
I want the job. I applied, so I don't think there's much reluctance there. Should I be reluctant?
I don't think so.
You talked about the case law, so.
I think that is, that's an important thing. Figuring out how to best utilize our resources and manage that. Overwhelmingly, it's drug-related crime. So how can we figure out how to deal with drug-related crime as it affects Ramsey County? And that's a big part of the dealing with that. I have some ideas, and hopefully they can move in the right direction and give people the help they need, give people the resources they need while dealing with what we have right now. I think there's a tendency to ask for more always before starting with what we have. So.
Thank you.
What questions, concerns, or comments would you like to share with us?
Well, I guess my question to you guys is, what do you see the role as the state's attorney as? I know there's big shoes to fill behind Carrie Godness and Lonnie Olson, but I'd be interested in what you guys are expecting out of me.
A lot. Plain and simple, a lot. Yeah, I think you are, filling some big shoes. I think we do have a lot of expectations, but we have a lot of need, as you're well aware. I think as a county state's attorney, you obviously be the chief prosecutor for the county. But you also assist the county and advise the county commission on the issues that we have. On a, whether it be a meeting-to-meeting basis or, something pops up and we need an attorney's advice.
Right.
All those things that we lean heavily on our state's attorneys in the past for. I don't know if there's anybody else have any expectations of what we have for.
You're well aware of the case law.
I am.
How many people do we have on the drug task force now, Steve? Three?
Three plus the BCI agents that are assisting.
Ramsey County picking up. How much of the bill?
Huh?
How much of the bill is Ramsey County picking up?
We have 1.5 employees. Out of the county.
Picking up.
City has one,
City.
we have one, and then we have a half of one, and then 4 other counties have a half.
So we're trying to address this drug issue in this community.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're very concerned about it because I know the schools are.
Absolutely.
And I have grandchildren and I don't want them around.
I don't think I can blame you for that.
No.
I mean,
Anything else we could do?
one idea, and I know that it came close, was trying to get a drug court into Devil's Lake. I'm not sure why it fell down at the last minute, but I think that's something we could do to potentially divert people out of the criminal system, get them to address their addictions head on, and try to get them the support they need without wasting the valuable resources of our sheriff's department, our police department, our probation officers. They're already slam busy as it is, so we need to think smarter, not harder.
How do we get a drug court started? Tell me. I don't know.
One step at a time.
Go through the state?
I would have to research it and get back to you. But I know there's a need here, and I know that it's possible to get one. So I think that's something that we can strive towards.
That'd be very interesting. How to get that.
Absolutely.
I do have a couple of follow-up questions if the commissioner wouldn't mind. While working with people from different backgrounds or cultures can be a real challenge. Can you tell me about a time when you had a problem adapting to people from different backgrounds or cultures and what happened and what you do and what the results were?
Sure. So I grew up in Grand Forks, as far east as you can go. And I took a job in Williston, and there's a real east-west divide. And that might not be a typical cultural divide that people think of. But I think the key to that is having integrity, showing up and working hard every day, and earning people's trust. And I'd be happy to provide you some names of people in Williston, but I think I made a good impression out there, taking one step at a time, trying to do what's right every day. And that's the foundation of all of it. People want to know if they can trust you and if you can do the hard tasks that nobody else wants to do.
I have one last question. What's the best book you read last year? And take a minute to tell me what you liked about it.
Wasn't expecting that one. I read a book called 11 Rings by Phil Jackson. Any of you read that? It's pretty good. I'll give you my copy.
Okay.
It's about his leadership with the Chicago Bulls and how he integrates opinions from all sorts of different people and how he led them through their championship runs and then eventually onto the Lakers. I'd flip the question on you. What's your favorite book you read in the last year?
Jim Gray's Talking to Goats. It had nothing to do with work or anything else. It was just Jim Gray talking to sports, the greatest of all times. Tom Brady being one of them. Just won 7 Super Bowl.
Sure.
Love him or hate him, it's an accomplishment that is very enviable. But Jim Gray put together a really good book, and a lot of it was with the assistance of Mr. Gray. I thought it was a really interesting book, and it didn't have to do with anything other than my interest in sports.
What else do you guys want to know? Anything?
How much money you want?
How much money I want?
I think I might be blunt.
Well, what do you think fair number is? I think if you look at it, counties of similar size, similar caseloads are in the mid to high 90s. I understand I'm a pretty young guy. I've got a lot of time to grow into the role. I think that's a fair price, especially considering that you're on call 24/7, you're supervising a staff, and you're working with great guys. I know that's a lot of money, but it's worth it.
Did you ever have to talk to our last state's Perry?
I know Perry pretty well. Anything else you guys want to know while I'm here?
So you've been in Devils Lake a little bit of time?
So we moved here last March, my fiance and I. We bought our home in October. So we're here. I like to fish, and she likes me enough to be with me. So we're here for Devils Lake for the long haul. And this is a great opportunity for all involved. So
Likes and dislikes about Devils Lake?
I definitely like the recreation, being able to be out and about. You know, it would be nice to have a movie theater, but,
I think something as a community, that's something we need to work on. Big fan of movies.
you know, I think there's just something about it. I've always kind of been a small town guy at heart, even though I grew up in Grand Forks. I grew up on the north end of Grand Forks, which is like its own small town. So, yeah, I mean, we like it here. Everybody's been good to us so far.
If we were to make an offer, would you meet us in the middle?
Depends on where they.
Depends on what the offer is, yeah.
That's open-ended, that question.
Because if we stick it to that, we could say 50 grand.
Not really, because our entry level offer is, you know, 86.5 or
Yeah.
roughly.
Right.
And you're looking mid-90s. If we came in around 90, would that be?
I think we could probably come to terms around there.
We'll have to. Everybody want to add up their questionnaires or put some numbers or?
And I'm happy to field questions, you know, if you have any questions, Sheriff. Crystal, anything? Okay.
You know Rhonda Allery? Rhonda's our director for social services.
She's always got questions.
Well, good. One of our most important partners at the state's attorney's office, social services. Looking forward to working with you, hopefully.
Yeah, that's something that should be mentioned too. I don't know if that's part of the description, but the state's attorney, since we are the host county, would be the attorney and legal counsel for the human service zone as well.
Absolutely.
And we have agreements with the other state's attorneys from the other zone counties for how we handle child welfare cases and stuff like that, which is general legal issues are dealt with by us.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate your time tonight, guys. I know there's probably better ways to spend a Thursday evening, but glad to be here with you. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me.
This is really important to us. And so I'm glad that you had the time and the opportunity to come and interview with us. So thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just score on these boxes. We gotta do math. As long as nobody gives us a break.
No worries.
Yeah. Well, there's the other special guidelines and stuff like that.
Around.
We can't hold it out.
No, unfortunately, we asked Crystal, we can't close the meeting and have an executive session to discuss and negotiate and all that kind of good stuff, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I checked with Aaron first just to make sure. And he said no. So I checked with Aaron or Chuck Porter and he checked with Aaron first and they said no. That you wouldn't be able to go into executive session.
What step is closest to 90,000? Or are we not going to use the step system at all?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What step is closest to 90,000? Or are we not intending to use the step system?
Well, it's you guys, now you gotta remember, our step system isn't exactly current, it hasn't been looked at for quite some time, so I don't know if you wanna put everything onto the step system, but, Oh,
But isn't the step system how he's gonna constantly get raises?
it is, but we haven't done a study on our step system. I think we discussed this in one of the commissioner meetings. I can't remember how many years ago, was it 7, 8, or 10?
2015 probably. I think it was the first year I was on the commission for the first time. And the last time we did a full-fledged look at the numbers. It's been quite a while.
If we put them in at 90 or thereabouts, what step would we be on for a step?
Let's see, 90,000 would be about 7 years.
7 years? would be-
Yeah. 8 years would take us up to 92,000.
Would take us to, what's that?
8 years would take us up to 92,000.
Where did we start Carrie at? Do you guys recall? It was in the mid to high 80s. And that's,
I think we started at like 89.
80, 87, 86, something like that, yeah,
Somewhere around there, finish at 93.
something like that.
She just keeps going.
Oh, did she? Okay, I'm sorry.
She what?
She just keeps it like that.
Oh, she was. Okay. We started her up in that
But it wasn't
90
high
range,
80s.
and she had more experience from a, overall standpoint with the court system, but. And that was, what, 3 years ago, so you've got 2% inflation basically every year for cost of living and everything like that on top of it, so I don't think, I think 90 is a good place to start, offer it, see if he counters back a little higher, and we can always meet him at 92 and a half or whatever.
We can go to that 8 year.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of a seller's market.
Crystal, do you have any information on anybody else's salary schedule, like in Grand Forks or Jamestown?
Yeah, and actually, I think Jeff recently pulled that information off the Association of Counties.
Jamestown.
Probably. I don't know what their caseload looks like, though, would they be a little
Not
smaller
a
than
big,
us?
yeah.
It'd have to be something with, almost a community that's larger than us to get a similar caseload structure, but then they probably have larger staffs and everything too, so.
Yeah, Jamestown, about twice as high.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's sort of two questions here, either of which we have to either answer tonight or table, which is, do we intend to make an offer? And if so, the second question is, what amount? Maybe it starts with, do we feel comfortable making an offer? Yes.
Yeah, I like it. I think we need to make an offer. It's just a matter of where's it coming in.
I agree.
We'll have a lineup of other candidates.
Even as that, I'm going through the questionnaire. Not terrible.
No, I thought he had.
For the experience that he has, I feel he did well. You guys.
Yes, he's well spoken. My honest assessment was that, and granted, we asked a lot of questions, there was a lot of speaking of platitudes and not a lot of actual in-depth answering the questions.
Right.
But then again, it's not very often that I interview a lawyer, so maybe that's typical. But I would agree. I think that we're sort of in a position where we have to basically take what we can. And he seemed like a reasonable candidate, would have probably been competitive even if we had had many candidates. So in that regard, I feel comfortable. And I think that the number that makes sense to me, you said 7 years is what?
7 years is 90,888.
Then that's where I'd be comfortable.
Sounded to me like he would be willing to at least entertain that offer, and he might counter, but it wouldn't move it that much from there, so.
I make a motion, go ahead and offer the job at 95 now. I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
We know what the workload is out there. Just wanted to after. I don't think we need any arguments with anybody.
What does that put us at step what?
9. Yeah, that was 9, and at 9, it's 94,560.
We would have, we're not asking for the experience to be a state attorney, so we basically have that, maybe 2 or 3 years of experience. I mean, to put that on the salary schedule, so we're only going up about 8,000, 7.
Yeah, it's not all that much, and if you look at what he's making currently, you would be able to start down at that bottom range anyways, and expect him.
Yeah, his current wage is actually what, up in the 80-something range, so this isn't like,
Pretty close to what that top or starting offer was,
Mhm.
and we adjusted.
this isn't a huge step up dollar wise, but
He did come back and say he applied, he wants the job. You know,
So you wanted, did you make?
I'll make that motion.
Step 9, is that right?
it's 94.80 was
Okay, second.
Okay.
Moved in second that we offer Mr. Bo Cummings the position of state's attorney, starting off at step 9, was it?
And then who wants to make the offer? I can put the offer letter together. Do you want me to present it to him, or do you want to as a portfolio, or you as the chair?
You can't verbally tell? No,
What's that?
you can't verbally tell?
Yeah, and we can get a verbal acceptance, but do you want me to take care of that, or do you guys, one of you want to take that?
Well, what if, and does the commission, what's the commission feel about if it comes back at the cutoff?
I guess we'll have to meet again.
Okay,
well, okay,
Yeah. I,
that's a final.
what I don't think we should do tonight is say, well, we'd be comfortable going up to this because.
yeah, I realize that.
Minutes down right there at midnight, so. I'm
So,
gonna take him for his word.
Well, if he does counter offer, we'll have to meet again, but we can make it quick if we have to.
I think it could even be by phone.
Yeah.
if you like, I can make that call this evening.
Okay.
And, get the ball
Yeah, to the chair, that makes sense, either you or I could, since I'm the portfolio, but I'll defer to you, Jeff.
rolling.
I agree, I think the caution.
He wants to give 2-week notice, so. Just take it the ball rolling.
Which is fair, but.
Well, I do think we need to, take a vote. We have a motion in a second. So, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all for attending this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Meeting's closed.
give him a call. Make a call tonight, we can